Okay, sure. Do I open my? Okay, I
Okay,
open my.
open your camera. Open your camera as well.
Boleh ah? Okay. So I just buat yang I do self introduction lah.
Okay.
Okay, I try. Okay, hi everyone. My name is Chi and I am a computer science and engineering student currently pursuing my second year studies in Seoul National University, South Korea. And I'm also part of the Communication and Special Task Bureau for Malaysian Students Association in the Republic of Korea, or PPMK in short. And I am delightful to be here today to speak about my opinions regarding the pandemic, which I believe is a major issue that we are all aware of. And also a big welcome to Anif from MASAF and Daniel from MASCA too. Okay, tak? Audio?
Audio goes on.
My voice is clear, right?
Yeah, okay.
My voice okay kan? Okay, bagus. What time
Oh, you guys don't have to do me. Okay, send me the link. So a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, a very good afternoon, depending on your time zone. And welcome to PPMK second series of the Roundtable Forum discussion. I am Anderton Owen. I'll be your moderator for today. And for those who are not really familiar with what Roundtable is, basically it's a forum discussion whereby the main focus here is to gather as many Malaysian students, especially those who are studying abroad, to come together and to deliberate on social and current issues that are occurring around the globe. And hopefully, through this initiative and through this program, it will further enhance our members' cultural understanding and as well as international understanding. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, as I have mentioned earlier, this is the second series of the Roundtable. And we did successfully carry out the first series with the Indonesian Student Association in Korea, PPMK. However, today we are very honored to have a representative from the Malaysian Student Council of Australia, MASCA, Mr. Daniel Gunn over here. And we also have representative from the Malaysian Student Association in France, Ms. Nurul Anif. And of course, our very own Malaysian Students Association in the Republic of Korea, PPMK, Ms. Lee Shi. They're joining us today for our roundtable today, as we are going to discuss how the country like Australia, France, and Republic of Korea, how these countries managed to tackle and handle this pandemic COVID-19 situation, and what can we learn from each country. So we are very honored that I am very excited actually to have all this amazing panel with us. And before we dive deeper into our discussion for today, I think it is better to know them and let us introduce them one by one. So can we have Daniel from MASCA to introduce yourself?
Right. Thanks, Owen. So yeah, hi guys. My name is Daniel, and I'm the current National Advocacy Director for MASCA National, and I'm currently studying in the University of Queensland in Brisbane, majoring in political science. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Daniel, for this introduction, and thank you also for making your time and joining us today. All right. So next, can we have Anit from MASAF to introduce yourself?
Right. Hi, everyone. I'm Anit. I'm the Secretary General of MASAF for this term, and I'm a final year student in Bachelor in Management. So yeah, that's about me.
Great. Thank you, Anit. Thank you for introducing yourself and for joining us today. And last but not least, can we have Chi to introduce yourself to the audience?
Okay, hi everyone. So my name is Chi and I am a computer science and engineering student, currently in my second year in Seoul National University, South Korea. So I am the part of the Communication and Special Task Bureau for Malaysian Students Association in the Republic of Korea, or PPMK in short. And I'm delighted to be here today. And also a big welcome to Ani from MASAF and Daniel from MASCA too. Yay, great to have you all here.
Thank you, Chi. Thank you, Chi, for the introduction. And I actually feel very excited because we have Malaysian students here around the group from Europe, we have from the Oceania and the East Asia, and each of them also is majoring different field of studies. So we can't wait to see what they have to offer to the table. And I just cannot wait what their view on these issues. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, as we all know that the first COVID case was recorded on the 1st January 2020 in Wuhan, China. And according to the World Health Organization, WHO, the first recorded case outside of China was in Thailand on the 13 January 2020. So up until today, it is recorded that there are over more than 206 million cases worldwide and almost 4 million of lives lost due to this virus. All right, so my first question to our panel is, how is it the COVID situation and the vaccination progress in your country? Right, can we have Daniel from MASCA to share your thoughts on this?
Right, thanks, Owen. Yeah, so it's pretty interesting in terms of Australia as a country. So how we record our COVID cases daily is we don't really see our COVID case number as a whole, as a country, as Australia, but instead we recorded it as states, because even a state itself in Australia is a pretty huge area. So Australia has been doing fairly well in the early stages of COVID. Besides Victoria, where Melbourne is, they had a pretty bad outbreak, which resulted in one of the longest lockdowns actually in the entire world for maybe more than 3 to 4 months. But then they slowly recovered. But recently, due to the Delta outbreak, now currently New South Wales is back in a really, really bad lockdown. And New South Wales is where Sydney is. So, for example, like today, I just got the numbers. Today, New South Wales has broken a record again, where they have 466 cases locally transmitted, whereas it's pretty good everywhere else in Australia, where Victoria is recording 21 cases, and Queensland, which is where I'm from, is only recording at 6 cases per day. And everywhere else in Australia has 0 cases. So Australia is still doing pretty well. But then the vaccination rollout is slightly slower than the other countries, and the slowest out of all the developed nations. So Australia currently only has 20% of the population that is fully vaccinated, and 38% of the population having their first dose, which includes myself. I got my vaccination yesterday, which I'm pretty happy about it. But it is actually lower than what we have in Malaysia. Malaysia has, from the numbers I see, has 31% of fully vaccinated people, and 52% has their first dose in Malaysia. So you can see Australia is slightly lacking a bit. But Australia focuses on their rollout progress by age group. So currently, each age group is disproportionately vaccinated from group to group. So like, for example, Australia focuses on the older age group first. So actually 82% of people who are above the age of 70 actually has already had their vaccination, and 51% is fully vaccinated for the people who are older than 70 years old. But then the people above 16 years old, it's only 47% that is vaccinated. So that's actually pretty low. So in my opinion, the vaccination rate is so slow because there is a low supply of vaccines in Australia, because we only accept the Pfizer vaccine, and there is a general hesitancy of the AstraZeneca vaccine in Australia. But then recently, the Prime Minister has approved the Moderna vaccine. So hopefully with that approval, we can see a higher vaccination rate in Australia. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Daniel, for a very clear and precise all the detail about the vaccination and the cases in Australia. We want to know about France. How is it in France, Annie? Is it everything fine, or how is it going on?
Right. It's interesting to like hear how Australia's doing, and in France, I would say I don't know how to like tell whether it's bad or good, but like the daily cases as of right now, I just got data for yesterday's cases. It was approximately 26,000 new cases per day, and regarding it goes back to the culture. I think I'm not sure about other countries, but people here are not really concerned over how many cases they have in one day. And I feel like it contributes to the whole situation here. Like they have this mindset that it's okay if you have COVID. It's not something bad, because like back in Malaysia, I see people like, if you have COVID, it's really serious. You might be dead. You might, all those things, all those negative things. So like here, it's very chill, and even the vaccination process has been going on quite good. Like me myself, I have been vaccinated like last month, And even my friends, most of my friends, we have all been vaccinated. So the fact that students, like foreign students, also got like vaccination would, I mean, for me, it would show that the process is quite good. And I really like the fact that here in France, you can just call the center and say, hey, I want to get vaccinated. And then they will set you up with a vaccination session for the next day. And then you will get it like just like that. And it's pretty much simple. And I feel like a bonus point here is that people can actually choose what they want to get vaccinated with. If you want Moderna, you can like find doctors that have them, and then you can like, hey, do you still have like empty slots? I would like to come and get this, and this vaccine. So I feel like that is a privilege that not many country has, right? So yeah, I would say it's quite good. And I just checked just now, the vaccination, like people who are fully vaccinated, is more than 50% here in France. So I guess that is quite good. And people are quite keen to restaurants. If you want to dine in, or if you want to go to the pool, you need your set and like your pass, like your vaccination pass too. So like, yeah, people are just like, they sort of have no choice but to be vaccinated, but at the same time, they get to choose what they want to be vaccinated with. So that's about.
I see, and thank you for explaining the whole situation in France, because it's great to have to listen from France and to listen from Australia as well. But I did some research check on France, like a little bit of background check. I think the cases are decreasing, between April and June. Somehow it started to increase 3 times greater in June, starting from June and July. And it's like 3,000 cases today, daily cases. Yeah, 30,000.
Yeah,
cases, right?
I think so.
Yeah, right.
I guess it was because of that like don't care attitude, because I remember before, even if we want to go out, we had to like have this sort of form that we need to fill in, like saying that, oh, I'm going here to do my groceries, I'm going here to just do some exercise, like within 10-kilometer radius of my house, for example. And like right now it's very lax, and I think that because of that don't care attitude also, it's causing the cases to go out. Like, but before we had this, the government lifted the ban where the people needs to wear the mask, right? But now they set it back because the cases have been going up. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Meanwhile, in Korea, it has a really quite nice record in 2020, whereby the daily cases is only below 100 from April 2020 until November 2020, but spike up to 1,000 cases starting from December, and then January, and then up until today, we have like almost 2,000 daily cases. Right? Perhaps Shiwi can tell us more about this and the vaccination progress as well.
Yes, like I said as open, unfortunately, South Korea now is experiencing a spike in the daily COVID-19 cases. Like as for yesterday, we have a total of 1,930 cases, local new cases here, which maybe if you compare to Malaysia COVID case right now, it may seem like nothing, but it is really considered as like a new high after the third COVID-19 wave, which just happened at December 2020, because the new cases only peak at around like 1,200 new cases. So it's considered quite a crucial and a severe situation right now in Korea. And plus, there are also recorded case of the Delta Plus COVID-19 variant. I just saw it on news. So this also raised a lot of concerns among Koreans due to because its contagiousness and lethality, which is really serious. However, the good news is South Korea has finally shifted its gear, speeding up in the vaccination plan. Okay, so up until now, around like 40% of the population of South Korea has already received their first dose, and out of 15% of them has already completed the second dose. So among this 40%, the majority of them are actually from the elderly, because South Korea has prioritized the vaccinations for the elderly. And recently, South Korea has just opened its vaccination registration to those aged 18 to 49 and is scheduled to roll out their shots starting from 17th of August, mid of August. And luckily for foreigners like me and also Owen, which we are holding a long-term visa in South Korea, we are also given the same treatment as Koreans to receive their vaccine, to receive our vaccination shots. And talking about the type of vaccines, the most used vaccine here is Pfizer, Moderna, and also AstraZeneca. And AstraZeneca is mostly given to like elder citizens, while people aged 18 to 49 are scheduled to receive either Pfizer or Moderna. But the authorities had emphasized that we don't have the right to choose what vaccine we're going to get. So it's like randomly assigned. Yeah, I believe this kind of summarizes up the current COVID situation here in Korea and also the vaccination progress.
Yeah, Kiwi, thank you. It's really clear as what Kiwi said. The government decided the type of vaccine for us. Me, myself, I haven't vaccinated yet, and I've already registered. I think it's around next week, and hopefully everything is gonna be okay. Everything is fine, right? And yeah, I believe that the government of all nations and like working really hard to come up with the solutions and policies to fight the spread of the virus. And uh, we want to know what is the current COVID-19 policies in your country and what can you actually learn from it, and how do you want to apply it to Malaysia, or because you've been there, you've been part of the system, you've been part of the policy, you understand the policy. So we want to know more about it. And I read that the Prime Minister of Australia and the National Cabinet announced that there will be like 4 phase of plan to move away from the lockdown. And yeah, maybe Daniel can add more about this and tell us more about this.
Yeah, currently Australia is still in the vaccination process. We really have to achieve herd immunity before we can advance in the 4-step process where the Prime Minister has really presented, earlier this year. But then I think the policies that Australia as a whole is successful, because every state really differs in their approach in tackling COVID-19. But then I think the few how to say the few similarities I can say in policies that Australia actually has like a very fast and effective snap lockdowns with very strict state and local government area border controls. So what am I saying is that, for example, like if there is for example, if there is no COVID cases for a while and then suddenly there's a jump in community cases where maybe there's a leak in a hotel quarantine, for example, because Australia is actually very used to being so-called COVID-free, but then sometimes there will be a leak in our hotel quarantines or actually in hospitals and stuff like that. So when there's cases like that, our premiers, which is our head of our states, will actually announce in the morning that maybe in the evening there will be a snap lockdown for maybe 3 or 7 days. So it's a very fast and effective way to really stop the spread in amongst the community, because we are all very vulnerable without the vaccines. And I think another thing that I really applaud the Australian leaders is that Australian politicians generally are doing a very good job in leading by example, meaning they when, like, for example, because our Queensland Premier, which is the head of the state, recently went to Tokyo in the Olympics because Brisbane is announced to be the host city for the 2032 Olympics. So our Premier went to Tokyo to do the pitch. But then when she came back to Australia, she went through the hotel quarantine like any other Australians would do when they re-enter the country. So I think that's a very good thing to show the public that, even the most powerful people in the country follows the rules as well. And I think that's a very important thing in order to really garner the support of the public and gain public confidence, But I think one thing that we can learn from Malaysia is that I'm very, very encouraged by the people's initiative of average Malaysians, like for example, the white flag movement. I'm very, very inspired by it because I don't see that much amongst average Australians where they rely a lot on their governments, whereas the people here may be a bit complacent in their advocacy and their own initiatives. So that's one thing that I am really inspired by Malaysians, and definitely this what makes Malaysia such a great country to be in, where the people cares for one another. Yeah.
Exactly, I have to agree. That's Malaysia. We love to help each other. And as what you have said, mentioned just now, Australian politicians, they lead by example. And yeah, nobody is above the law. Everyone is the same, no exception. And that's something that, not only just the politician have to learn from. I guess we as students also, the student leaders, right? So yeah, thank you, Dana, once again. Right. Meanwhile, in France, as Anit mentioned earlier, they decided to end the obligation to wear masks outside and would bring forward the lifting of nighttime curfew. And maybe you can tell us more about the policy now in France. Are there any changes in COVID cases after they end the obligation to wear the mask and also the lift in the nighttime curfew, perhaps?
Yeah, well, before, I mean, back in, because, well, back in like February, March, and April, I think, we had this curfew where after 9 o'clock, we're not supposed to be, I think it was 9 o'clock, we're not supposed to be out of our houses, whether you want to get groceries, whether you want to go like do exercises, you need to be back home by that time. And I had an experience where I was stopped by the police. Like they were asking me, "Where are you going?" Because I just went back from from playing volleyball with other Malaysian students. Because we couldn't just stay home. It was us socializing and stuff. And then I was walking home, and my home was quite far from the volleyball place. And then there was police like doing sort of like a roadblock, but I don't know if they have those kind of things here in France. But they were asking where I was from, and they wanted me to show the certificate thing with the which states where I'm coming from and stuff like that. So at that time, it was quite enforced because you can see that the roads are empty, the buses are empty, and the police are quite serious about just making sure people are not moving out of their house, because they give you time in the day, so why are you going out at night, right? But then like after like a few months, when the cases have went down, you've seen the cases went down, right? So the government decided to lift the ban, so people are free to go out, except like they cannot go to like um nightclubs. I believe it's the same thing in Korea, where you cannot go to the nightclubs because that's where like the cases spread the most, right? So yeah, like right now we can go out, we can dine in the restaurants, but you need to you need to make sure that you are vaccinated, or you need to get PCR test done in 48 hours, if I'm not mistaken. And like yesterday or last 2 days, I believe, I went to this sort of beach to play sports and stuff. So I need to show this vaccination card stating that I've got vaccinated. So when I went in, it was like I got this feeling that everything was back to normal because no one was wearing masks in there. Because yeah, it's just so basically they have this new regulation where if you are vaccinated and you get in a place where everyone is vaccinated, so you don't have to wear any mask because apparently everyone is immune, right? And so yeah, I feel like it's something that I appreciate the most, and because at least you get a glimpse of the old life that you had, right? So and then we also have this regulation where you can also wait one moment. Yeah, before you need to have like you have this cap of people joining one event. For example, if you want to do like parties or anything, you can only have like 6 people in the same place. Like if you're in like an open air place, you cannot like do a gathering with more than 6 people. If you have, let's say, maybe 12 people, you need to like 6 people here and 6 people there. But now it's practically non-existent. And even though like recently there has been a spike in cases and the government has imposed the ban or that you need to wear masks in public places, I feel like it's not really enforced and the police are not really like too strict on it. Like I've seen people who didn't went by the police and the police were like, oh, okay, people are not wearing masks. They didn't really do anything. So I feel like it could be contributing to the fact that the cases are spiking again. So yeah, that's about it.
I see. I think there is a similarity between France and in Korea because like you have limited like how many people can gather in one place, right? And yeah, right now in Korea we have like 4 levels of social distancing, and right now we are at the 4th level of social distancing and having curfew at 10 p.m. and most of the shops are closed by that time. And yeah, maybe Chewy can explain to us more about it.
Yeah, sure. Extending to what OpenEd just said. So in South Korea right now, we have different levels of rules based on the current situation and severity of COVID-19 cases. So these rules are named the social distancing rules, a very direct name. And there are 4 main levels in these rules, with which level 1 is like the least severe situation, and level 4, which we are having it right now, is the most like severe one. And the measures implemented includes restriction like private gatherings and events, protests, and also like sporting events, classes, religious activities, and the use of like entertainment facilities, like what Anif mentioned now, the nightclubs and pubs and bars. And under all this restriction, the maximum number of people allowed to like gather for different events are also controlled. Like, for example, a very quick example is like in Seoul, because we are in the midst of 4th COVID wave right now. So the level 4 restriction is applied. This means that if you want to go for private gatherings, it is only allowed up to a maximum of 4 people. And after 6 p.m. in the evening, only 2 people are allowed to gather, which is just you and another person. And also in the level 4 restriction, of course, all the classes and religious activity are conducted online, and all shops are allowed to open until like 10 p.m. only. And for the level 4 restriction, I found a very interesting part, which is protests are actually allowed only if it is a 1-person protest. Yeah, FYI, Koreans kind of like to protest, okay? So I think this is quite an initiative from the South Korean government to at least provide their citizens with some form of freedom of speech in this, tough situation. So as the severity of corona cases go down, the restriction levels will also go down, and the number of people allowed to gather will be increasing. Also, if it allows, the situation allows, like schools are also possible to have offline classes with, of course, a limited capacity. Okay, so on the other hand, despite having such strict social distancing rules, Korea does not have domestic travel restrictions. So citizens are free to travel to any state or any city without need to apply like any permits or have a negative COVID test result. However, the different levels of like social distancing rules still apply according to like which city you are in. So some cities we have like lesser COVID-19 cases may have like a lower level of social distancing rules. Yeah, so turning our attention to Malaysia, I'd like to mention about Malaysia's policy a bit. So Malaysia actually has a very strict set of rules, right? Which is the Movement Control Order, MCO. Yeah, of course, I think strict rules are good and all, but the downside is like the economy is badly affected in Malaysia, especially if you see like small and medium enterprises or the SMEs, where they are like closing down due to low income on the NCO period, right? So what makes South Korea kind of successful in controlling the COVID situation at the start and at the same time maintain its economy is that instead of like restricting people from going out of their house entirely, they actually just restrict the amount of people that can gather together. But if you see in Malaysia, sometimes the COVID wave is actually caused by like massive gatherings when MCO is not applied, right? So we can't deny that the spread of COVID-19 is due to all of this massive gatherings. So I think instead of limiting people to like stay at home and not having the rights to carry out their daily economic activities, I reckon that allowing them to like perform their daily routine in a small scale will be way much better and beneficial. Yeah, and last point, a quick point that I would like to mention is about the PCR test in Korea. So it is like super convenient to get PCR tests here done in Korea. There are tons of like temporary PCR test stations here and there. So you can get your PCR test done really fast. It's just like 5 minutes away from my house. And the key point is it is actually free of charge, and you can just like walk in and get your test done in like 10 minutes. So it's super convenient. So I think Malaysia can also try to like apply this policy also, so that I think because it's a really effective way to control the virus and also decrease the spread of virus. Yeah, so this is like some of the methods I think which is really good that we can also learn from Korea. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think I also can confirm that I think Australia is the same thing, where mass testing is actually free of charge, and it's actually very accessible. Like for myself, I can get tested 2 to 3 minutes away from my place, and which is actually really good, and it's actually free, and there's not much of a crowd there because of the accessibility of testing. So yeah, I think mass testing and free mass testing is actually very, very effective. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, I agree with you.
I agree too. Yeah. The more we detect the cases, like it's easier to cure and to tackle that. Yeah, and as we all know that due to COVID as well, and I believe that there are so many people who lost their jobs and source of incomes. And taking Malaysia, for example, and according to the Department of Statistic Malaysia, the unemployment rate in June 2021 spiked up to 4.8% compared to 4.7% in July 2020. And the number of unemployed persons escalated by 40,000 persons. And other than the unemployment issue, of course, the rate of suicide also increases, as the police recorded around 468 468 suicide cases in Malaysia in the first 5 months this year, compared to an annual total of 631 cases in 2020 and 609 cases in 2019. It's a huge number. And I believe that this pandemic has contributed both to the rise of unemployment and also suicide rate in Malaysia. However, in general, I would like to know your opinion, like how to maintain the morale amongst the citizens affected by COVID-19. There's so many side effects of COVID. Of course, people lose their job and the size of the incomes as well. And we want to know about the Australian government. Are there any helps being offered by the government? Perhaps Daniel.
Yeah. So in terms of like joblessness and unemployment and stuff like that, I think Australia has a pretty good policy, and this is just for last year and I think a little bit of this year. I think Australia has this thing called Job Seeker, which is a fund. I think it's a fund that it's provided to ordinary Australian citizens for them to actually have a sum of money to live by. And I think the Australian government actually also supports SMEs and actually gives a sum of money to the businesses to actually keep their employees, So I think that's a pretty good way to sustain, I think, for that short while when they figure things out, or before the things get better, the situation gets better. So I think in terms of that, I think that's pretty good. Like now when the situation in Australia in certain states are getting better, unemployment rates are also dropping as well, because people start to come out and and stuff like that. Whereas in terms of mental health and stuff like that, I think Australia also has a lot of mental health support, and also like helpline, and also counseling services. And because counseling services and therapy is actually included in the Australian Medicare, which is the universal healthcare for Australia, I think it's a pretty good way to help the citizens, especially in this time of a pandemic where therapy is needed. And I think giving a certain amount of therapy sessions to every Australian who has Medicare is a very good initiative, with having universal healthcare. And I think however, this is only benefiting the average Australian citizens. And I think us international students are actually have it not so good, I would say, where we don't have the normal support that we have. We don't have any monetary support during our stay here. And I think one criticism that I can give to the Australian government is that I think as international students, and because international student and education in general is like the third export for Australia, and we really give a lot to the economy and of Australia. But in times of pandemic, the Australian government don't really support much towards the international student. And I think that's something that needs to be improved, because like number one, international students support a lot to the regular economy pre-pandemic. And a lot of students are actually stuck here, like for myself, because of the borders and stuff like that. It's really not worth for me to go back to Malaysia and not being able to come back to Australia to continue my studies. So I'm technically stuck in Australia, but without the support and stuff like that, it's very hard for me to go through my daily lives. And with no support of much support of mental health and like free therapy sessions, it's actually pretty hard for me to go seek help and stuff like that. So I think in a very traditional Malaysian way, we find ways to help one another. And I think for last year, my organization MASCA has have like initiatives of like grocery distribution and stuff like that, and also thanks to Education Malaysia Australia, where they funded our organization to be able to carry out these kind of initiatives and stuff like that. So I think there's that is the definitely the silver lining of regular Malaysian students in Australia. Yeah.
I see. Well, thank you for sharing, because we don't even know what's happening in Australia and the situation there among the students as well.
Yeah.
Thank you, Daniel, for sharing that with us. Yeah. And how is it in France, Andy? Is it the same? Like, as you mentioned earlier, the French they don't really care. They are really carefree and about these problems. How about their mental health? Are they really like stable, or and the employment rate as well? Yeah.
Well, I guess I'll start with the unemployment rate. From what I've read, it's even before COVID, the unemployment rate was quite high. I think it was like 2 times Malaysia's unemployment rate. It was 8 point something. And then when I checked again, like it's from last year, it increased by 1% to like right now, I think it's 8.1%. Somehow. So in the first place, the public security is quite good. Just like you guys, here in France, you can actually get all those PCR tests for free. You can just go, and there are a lot of stations here and there, and then you can get the results by the next day. And yeah, regarding the mental health, right? I'm not quite sure, but I feel like there has been much help from the government. Like I'm not gonna say it's much help. I feel like it's a thing that has existed in the beginning, but right now maybe more people are using it. So in the first place, the government has put like quite a lot of effort in public health in social security, because we have that thing like the one in Australia where we call it, I think we call it like the social security, where everyone in France has the right to it, no matter even if you're a foreign student, even if you're a foreign worker, and of course for the people of France, right? So if you need like some help, you can just contact any, because here in France you need to like sort of register with a doctor to be like his patient. If you have like any problems, just go to him, sort of a thing like that. So if you want like a consultation or a therapy, you can just contact him, and then maybe he can refer you to like another doctor. So the process is quite easy, because like it's a regular doctor, so the doctor knows you and he sort of knows your problems and stuff. And I believe they have implemented a measure where you can like have an online therapy session, so you can just video call, right? So you don't have to like travel far just to get to the doctor and those kind of stuff. So I feel like it's quite good, but I'm not quite sure about, because I'm not in a situation where I live with the French themselves, so I don't know if there are times where they have this suicide rate going on, like high or low. But before, for example, I see here in France they have this not tradition, but this thing going on where they have like people who have no homes. I believe they have a name, but I don't remember what's the name. And these people would bring dogs with them and stuff, so they would usually sleep near the metro, or maybe just in the day they would sit along the road, like just hanging out with their fellow friends who don't have homes too. So it's quite a sight to see. And the surprising thing is the fact that they don't get sick and this kind of stuff. So these kind of people, they do receive like stimulus from the government from month to month. Like me, for example, as a student, for my house rent, I actually get like what do we call it, subsidy from the government, because people pay tax, right? So I can see the tax coming back to the people, and it has been going on even like before COVID. So I feel like it's an ongoing thing, just like I said. It's just that people are using it more now than ever. So it's not really like the government has done a really good job in that, and I applaud them. And yeah, maybe it's something that it goes back to what Malaysia can learn from France. And yeah, I feel like to talk about those PCR tests free thing going on in Malaysia is quite hard, because the cases are quite high. No, the cases are really high right now. So it may be a far-fetched dream for Malaysia to achieve that, because I believe the healthcare system is like quite, like I'm not sure if it's paralyzed or not in Malaysia, but I don't think they might be able to do that now. But maybe if we manage to like get the cases to like go down, maybe it's something that we can achieve in the future. So I'm really hoping for that. Yeah.
Thank you, Anis, for the sharing. It's really interesting to see how the France government did a really great job on taking care of the welfare of the people. And maybe you can hear from she, because I think she went back to Malaysia earlier this year, right?
Yeah, I did.
So
Fortunately.
I think so. She know how's the situation in Malaysia and also in Korea, and maybe you can share with us how is it different, compare the situation, and of course the are they in terms of welfare of the people, yeah.
Yeah, okay, sure. So at first, I'd like to share something of my opinions about unemployment. So unemployment has always been an ongoing issue during the COVID-19 period. And like in Malaysia, we have seen a lot of people have lost their jobs and were forced into like unemployment due to the pandemic. Like in Korea, the unemployment has also surged to a new high during December 2020, which is like the third wave of COVID. And if I'm not mistaken, the percentage has spiked up to like 4.2, which is quite high. And for this, unfortunately, it has been decreased now thanks to the government, because they have rolled like some policies to help with that. So I personally think that the government actually plays a very, very crucial role in helping to decrease all these consequences that were caused due to the high rising unemployment rates. So in the case of Korea, you have the income supporting measures known as the emergency disaster relief, where it was originally meant for those to give to give victims for maybe earthquake or other emergency disasters, but now we use it for COVID. So this was rolled out to compensate for the loss of income of people. And the aim was to provide like financial support to low income household and also small and medium enterprise that was affected by the COVID-19. So this measure has really helped to relieve a lot of financial stress for those who were affected by the pandemic, which is a very crucial point also. And also another factor that I would like to state, which I observe as is about the delivery sector. So as we are stepping into a new era right now, where all the untaxed services are becoming like the new norm right now, because like we order food delivery every day, we receive parcels every day. So I certain that all these sectors are rapidly expanding right now, right? Not in Korea, I believe also in Australia, in France, in Malaysia, and almost all the world. And more people are actually now involving in like part-time work in the delivery sector. And I think this is a very good situation because we are seeing like an expansion of opportunity for work, right? But however, all these good things come with a disadvantage. As these part-time workers, they're actually working in really precarious situations and are facing quite a lot of like exploitations, right? And what such exploitation is overworking, I'm sure you guys are aware about. Because most of the delivery workers right now, they are paid like based on the amount of parcel or maybe food they deliver. So they are forced to work like overworking, work more hours and like work faster. So which consequently causes a lot of accidents to happen. And since their job required them to deliver items face to face, so there is a like generally concerning risk of COVID-19 infection among them. And the worst part is like often these part-time workers are protected under like very, very limited worker insurance. So if something unfortunate happens to them, the compensation that they or maybe their family will receive is very less compared to like regular workers. So I urge like the very companies to be more aware of these matters because these are the heroes that are helping us to cope with these new norms and to provide more protection to them. And also maybe some laws can be implemented to ensure that our part-time delivery workers have the same legal rights as the other employees too. And also moving on to like education, because it's also a very important, which all our international students here are also very, taking care about. So it's not hard to notice that actually right now, especially our younger generations, you can see inequalities in rights to receive education due to the pandemic. Because most of our children now were forced to be isolated, including us also, since schools have been shut down and they were forced to take online classes, right? However, as we know, not all the children, especially in Malaysia, have easy and access to the internet, right? Many of them are facing difficulties just to, have an hour of Zoom class. If you see the news last time in Sabah, one of the kids just have to like climb up a tree to get internet. So in these trying times where a lot of families are like having difficulties in financial, I guess it is just too much to ask all the parents to get a phone, buy a computer for each of their children and have the online classes, right? And not to mention how expensive the internet is. So I think it is a very sad to see children dropping out of their class because they couldn't afford to like buy a phone, or they had to work because they have to like support their family, which is always really like heartaching to read about all this news. And I think children should never be the victims of this financial burden and should never lose their right even in this pandemic situation. So although school closures are all meant just to be like temporarily, but some of them couldn't continue their education because, they are dropped out and they wouldn't like be capable to catch up again. So yeah, I believe more and more support, really a lot of support should be given to all these families and allow the children to have the means to attend online class, which I think, yes, is very important during this pandemic season. Yeah.
Thank you, Kiwi, for really brilliant ideas and opinions about the situation in Malaysia, of course. Now, let's talk about economy. I think this is really hard, but that is the reality, like in some countries, some companies in some country, they have to cut down their manpower. So of course it does affect the economic growth of a country. However, in Malaysia, the Malaysian economy actually grew 16.1% on the year in the second quarter of 2021. And according to the Bank Negara Malaysia Governor, Datuk Nur Syamsiah Yunus, the economic performance was supported mainly by the improvement in domestic demand and continued robust exports performance. So this is what the Malaysia government is doing. And perhaps we want to know your opinion on how can we boost up the economy and the loss of countries' profit affected by this pandemic. Perhaps we can hear from Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Owen. Yeah, and I think that what you have provided, the data you have provided is actually pretty interesting. Actually, to know that the economy actually improved, during the times of pandemic in Malaysia, especially with the never-ending lockdowns and stuff like that. I think it's actually like a miracle, But then I do feel that we are not that there is like a blind side to it where all this improved wealth, and economy is actually centered in a very few people or very few businesses, where I still feel that the average Malaysians are still suffering greatly from this pandemic, especially like the average Malaysian. So I think one thing that governments around the world can do is actually economic fiscal policies where governments actually pump in money to the economy, to stimulate the economy during times like this, And I think, like I mentioned in the last question just now, where the Australian government actually pumped a lot of money into the economy during the state lockdowns and stuff like that. And so like the welfare branch of Australia is called Centrelink, and Centrelink has actually provided a lot of businesses with funds in order to keep their employees, and also job seeker funds where unemployed citizens of Australia can actually have a sum of money, and these sum of money are actually pretty substantial. They are not just mere $100 or $200. They are actually in the thousands, in fortnightly payments, and these are amounts that you can actually support yourself or even a family, and to live a decent life. And I think this is a good comparison to show, in comparison to Malaysia. In Malaysia, I know that there is the Bantuan Prihatin initiative, where the government, it is a form of fiscal policy where they do pump in money into the people's pockets. But then I think that the amounts that are provided is really not substantial to live a decent living, especially when there's a movement control where you can't even step out the doors of your house to earn a decent living, but you really have no ways to earn money. And I think initiatives like the job seeker initiative in Australia is a very good way to ensure that people are living, and I think economy and having financial stability actually improves mental health as well, where you don't have to worry too much on what you have to eat tomorrow, and does your kids have enough sustenance to live through, And I think this generally improves mental health as well as the economy, which is the obvious thing. And like disaster payments and stuff like that. And although there isn't a long-term support for international students in Australia, however, I think recently, because of Australia, especially in the major cities like Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, where we have been experiencing too many snap lockdowns. Because, like I've mentioned before, once we have a little bit of cases, the government just shuts down the whole city. So I think the government has heard, and I think they have extended their support even to international students like me. And I'm very grateful for that. That's a good job to the government here. When, like for example, 2 weeks ago, when Southeast Queensland is in lockdown for 7 days, and has been declared as a national hotspot, I have lost some hours in my casual job, and the government actually repays me a salary, and I got around $400, which is around 1,200 ringgit, and that's a really, really substantial amount of money for me to pay my rent and to support myself, and I think that's a very good way to support the economy and keep stimulating the economy so that it doesn't go too bad. And I think my last point is also loan and rental moratorium, where I think this is a very, very, very important issue to bring up, where because like I said, when there's a lack of money, a lot of things will be affected, like including mental health and stuff like that. So I think when there is a legal obligation to not pay your loans and your rentals, but a stop to it, I think it will really help give a little bit of breathing room to the ordinary citizen. So I think when there is things like lockdowns and stuff like that, I think governments should continue the loan and rental moratorium so that there is more breathing room and more liquid assets for the citizens to get by. Yeah.
I see. All right, thank you, Daniel. I agree with you. It's really important to sustain the economy in this really hard time. How about Anit? What do you think? How can we boost up the economy and the lost country's profit affected by this pandemic?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised when you said that our economy boosted because, well, living I myself, I'm a student, so we as students we compare those in the middle income range and the lower income range and those kind of stuff, right? So right now I'm doing an internship in the company, in a Malaysian company. So I'm in charge of recruitment. So I can agree with you that we are in fact hiring more and more people because we have this work from home thing going on, right?
Right.
So it helps with hiring the people and just to sort of improve the, how do we say it, not unemployment rate, but more people are being hired. So I guess it does help in their morale and mental health and those kind of stuff. But I have to agree with Daniel that maybe we have to, in a sense that maybe we have to change, not change, maybe make an improvement to the policies. Like when he mentioned the loan and moratorium things, I do agree with that. It helped a lot, but I believe I've read a few a few things that might be the downside of those kind of things. Because even if you don't pay the loans, I believe it has something like the tax. I think the taxes are still going on, something like that. So it could actually be a burden to the people. So I just think that maybe an improvement or sort of a review on those policies need to be made. And I guess it goes back to the people too. People need to know more about what they are receiving and what they are giving somehow, because I feel like there's this culture in Malaysia where people they receive things without knowing if it's good or bad for them. They see the only the bigger picture of it. For example, if the government give you money, okay, good. But then is it gonna last long? Is it gonna, is it gonna last you for a whole 3 months? Or is it just gonna last you for 2 weeks? They don't really think about that. They see, we sort of need to develop this critical thinking, we ourselves as the people, because even though we have all these white flag movements that I really like, it's like we have this term like right in Malay, like sampai bila, until when? Like are we going to rely on ourselves too much? Are we going to rely on the government too much? At the end of the day, we really need to know like how we can improve ourselves. I mean, how we can benefit from the things that we get, because the government can't support us forever, other people can't help us forever. And in the sense where we can't just wait for something to happen, right? Like maybe I've seen people on Twitter like commenting the government can do this or that, but there's no action really going on. So I feel like maybe more people can, like I said, get to know more about stuff going on in our country, like not just saying things like, oh, the government should do this and this, or the people might do this and this. Maybe they can instead like launch like movements, or maybe they can, if you have connections to the people in the government or something like that, maybe you can like propose to them, we always have a right, what do we call saluran in English? Like we always have a right channel to like bring forth whatever you have in mind. So like students like us, we have that privilege, we realize those kind of things. But I noticed that a lot of people in Malaysia, especially from the lower income class, they don't really know these kind of things, and I feel like we need to educate them more about this. And they don't necessarily like read Twitter, they don't have those kind of privileges, they don't have internet and stuff. So I feel like more people need to reach out. And I don't know, for those who mampu, I'm not sure what's the word in English, but maybe you can help in that way. It's the little things that matter. So in whatever ways you can help, just help. I feel like that's the ultimate thing. So yeah, that's about it.
I agree, Annie. It's interesting to hear from you. And as what you have mentioned, instead of people, the people, instead of hoping someone to give their fish, it's better to expect someone to give their fishing route instead of a fish. Yeah, maybe Chewy, what's your opinion about this issue on the economy and how to help the country's profit?
Yeah, I totally agree on what Anif said, that it's not only the government's job, but also the people's job to help in the economy. But my point of view today for this question will be kind of as a whole, as a country. And so I believe it requires a like strenuous amount of effort to recover our economy to how it was during the pre-pandemic era. So I think the first thing that we can focus on right now is to increase the workforce in sectors that are like growing and like booming thanks to the pandemic. So sectors like medical, healthcare, untech service, and also like online technologies, they're actually growing very, very fast right now. So I think the sectors should be invested more to help them grow better, because these are the sectors that can actually bring in a lot of profits and boost up the economy, right? For instance, like in Korea, we have a company called Coupang, which is one of the largest e-commerce company of South Korea, has become the third largest employer by hiring, I think, 47% more in the third quarter of 2020 alone, which is a huge increase in their employment rate. So this is clear that this doesn't only help in bringing revenue to the country, but it also helps to create more job opportunities, which I mentioned just now about unemployment problems. And besides that, government can also take the initiative in creating more like job opportunities related to the pandemic, because this is what I saw in Korea. So in the case of Korea, government has actually hired like a lot of individuals, especially the elderly, because they are like not capable in doing like hard jobs or like technical jobs. So they are hired to help in realizing the measures to prevent the spread of virus. Like individuals, they are assigned to help in disinfecting public areas or COVID test stations, and also like controlling the social distance in public. So this has consequently helped a lot of individuals to gain some extra income also during the pandemic. And of course, talking about the post-pandemic era, if the COVID was to end, I think a complete and precise recovery plan is definitely needed in order to like restore the economy in our country. So in this recovery plan, I consider that long-term growth in the economy is to be a top priority rather than like short-term and fast profit. First, I believe that the government support from the government should be like more targeted, especially towards sectors that were like badly affected by the pandemic, such as like conventional retail, like travel, hospitalities. Yeah, these are all the sectors that will require more and more time and more effort to be restored compared to others. And so I think more financial help should be provided to them. And furthermore, even if the pandemic ends, I believe that support towards the poor and low-income individuals should also maintain. So like what Daniel mentioned, they have like job seekers in Korea, which I think is a very good initiative. So like this kind of program like job search, like also enhanced training to those who are like in need of jobs, and also like hiring subsidies can be implemented to help in decreasing the high unemployment rate. So a good example would be like lowering tax for companies that have successfully created more job opportunities will be a really good initiative. And I believe that once this unemployment rate is decreased, we can actually see the economy will grow in a more stable pace. So to summarize, I mean that restoring the economy will be no easy task. Definitely, it will take some time. And the government will have to strike a balance between providing enough short-term support right now during the pandemic to manage the economy at a stable state, but at the same time also to remember and keep in mind the importance of all the long-term continuation and like consistency on this support even after the pandemic has ended, to like ensure stable growth along the way. Yes.
All right, thank you, Jimmy. I do agree with you. But in all, I think the economy can go back to normal. Depends on the vaccination speed and of course the management of the COVID-19 cases in every country. Then we can know how the economy can go back to normal. Right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are, our last question for today. So this is quite personal, I think, as I ask for your own opinion based on your own experience, because we are living in the pandemic era. What can we learn from this pandemic, and how can we be more prepared for the next pandemic, perhaps? How about Daniel? What do you think?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think personally, I think this whole pandemic season and which is still ongoing, I think the top thing that I think I've learned from this pandemic is that mental health is actually really important. And because of this pandemic, with I think all countries which have experienced lockdowns in one way or another, I think it really amplified the effects of mental health and stuff like that. And I think it really shows the harmfulness of isolation and the need to actually reach out to people who are that are isolated and stuff like that. And I think it really let the people in power know that mental health services should be improved and should be greatly improved, especially all over the world. Mental health is really important. It really sets the trajectory to a lot of things that you do in your daily life. Like for us is studying, but then people who have graduated, we were working and stuff like that. Mental health is the root to our well-being and our health as well. And I know a lot of people said that it should be considered as a health issue, not just our physical health, but it also our mental health, and it comes hand in hand together, and is really amplified in this pandemic. And I think the second thing that we can really learn from is, and I think it is happening in Malaysia, that people are more and more aware of politics. I think it's something that we really can't avoid. I think pre-pandemic, people are really scared of politics. The word politics is really sensitive, but I think as we go through this pandemic season, seeing the state of Malaysia, I think more and more young people especially are being more aware of what the government is doing, and they are looking elsewhere outside Malaysia to know what other people are doing, what other governments are doing. And I think they are the young people like us are learning elsewhere, and they're making comparisons, they're asking more questions, they are really raising up their voices, and then I think that's a very encouraging side, especially as a political science major. I feel that that's something Malaysia really, really needed. And I think that's the silver lining of this pandemic for Malaysia. And I think I think I saw in Instagram a few days ago, I saw that there's a huge spike in youth awareness, and the youth think tank pages that have sprung up during the pandemic has really multiplied by a lot. This really means that there's a huge hunger for political literacy in Malaysia, and I can really see that it's not just people who are left-leaning or whatsoever that are more aware, but I can see there is a bipartisan approach to this hunger for political literacy. I can see, people from each side of the bench raising their voices and actually having similar ideas, and this really shows that we have more in similarity than we are different. So I really think that this pandemic really shows that we really have to put the people's interest first than than politics and power and stuff like that. So I think that's what I really learned from this pandemic. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you, Daniel. We have to put people first in this pandemic, and yeah, I do agree with you. But perhaps from Anit, what do you think? What have you learned from this pandemic?
Yeah, first of all, I would like to say that I really agree with whatever Daniel has said. They were all like they went straight through my heart, actually. Yeah, because they're all true, and I relate to it like very, very much. And for me personally, I feel like the first thing that comes to mind whenever you say about something like what I learned from this pandemic is definitely that life is actually hard with the pandemic. Like just like you said, like mental health wise, like maybe sometimes it could affect you physically too. You don't go out from your house, you just eat, and maybe you don't exercise, so it really affects your health, like definitely not in a good way. And for me, I find it hard to because I believe we all have our classes online, right? So like for me personally, I find it really, really hard to focus. And at one point I really thought, like, can I make it? Like, is it possible for me to graduate? Or even if I graduate, will it be like, you know yourself. So at that point I thought to myself, well, am I gonna graduate with the good knowledge? Because you, like, for me personally, I have this thought, oh, even if I don't get it in class, I can learn it by myself. But that's not gonna work. I know it's not gonna work for me. So at the end of the day, I had to like develop a discipline, like that like for studying, whether you like it or not, you need to like stay in front of the laptop. And I feel like I've developed my own initiatives to like just improve myself, my discipline, so that I mean, that apparently there's a silver lining behind the pandemic after all, right? But to say that, like, since your question is about maybe in the next pandemic what we can do, I haven't thought of that, because in the first place I wasn't positive about this pandemic ending. That's me personally, because it might end, but it might take 2 or 3 more years before it's really under control. Because the with the Delta variant and those kind of stuff, it's really evolving. And it's like, I once thought to myself, is this ever gonna end? So I am at that point of life right now. So I'm just trying to keep positive. And I just feel like I'm very grateful to have my friends with me. And I don't know how someone could survive without other people around them. So isolation really takes a toll on people. And yeah, just like Daniel said, we really need, like, like this awareness of mental health and those kind of stuff. And people just need to like connect to one another. like no matter what, just reach out to your family, to your friends, or even if you have no one, maybe your lecturers. I mean, some people, like maybe some people think that, oh, no one wants to help me, but just put a trust in yourself and believe that no matter what, there is someone out there for you who is ready to help you. And yeah, I guess that's about it. Yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Thank you, Anif, for the insights and the ideas of your opinion on this pandemic. And last but not least, can we please hear from Chi? What's your opinion on this? Can you hear me?
Hi, okay. Can you hear me? I'm so
Yeah.
sorry, I just experienced an internet problem. Okay, so I'm just gonna share a thought of two of about what I've learned through the pandemic. So like what Anif and Daniel mentioned, the most like common thing that we have learned about is all about the importance of our mental health and our self-being. So for me, I have learned to be more grateful for the things that are around us, like the things that we thought to be like so normal and like so natural, and the things that we never really gave much attention to. As I came across a lot of people sharing posts on like Facebook or Instagram, sharing about the thoughts of like losing their family members due to the COVID-19, and reading about the pain that they felt and how regretful they were. That always like shed me, brought me to tears. And through that, I started to like rethink the value of like home, just what it meant to me. And I started to be like super appreciative for my family members too. And moreover, I believe like now, because returning home from overseas was once a really easy matter, right? Because you just like hop on a flight and then a few hours back, you're in Malaysia. But now due to the pandemic, it has become like mission impossible, which I believe Daniel and Anif and also all the students which are abroad will also probably feel the same as me. So from this, I personally, I have learned to be like more grateful and appreciate my life a little bit more. And on top of that, I am also very grateful and relieved to see that the society has started to pay more attention to those like who are in need. Like the younger generation, if you see, they are quite noticeably becoming more aware of current social issues and also like politics, which Daniel mentioned. So you can see more people are like sharing news and posts related to the pandemic and also social issue that was like caused due to the pandemic, like domestic violence, poverty, discriminations. Yeah. So also like programs such as like food banks and donations have become more common and are being actively participated by more people. So we as a society have started to be more aware about all the people around us and the things that are happening around us, which is a very good example, as also mentioned a few times by our panels, which is the white flag movement. So before this movement, poverty issue in Malaysia actually went like a bit unheeded. But after this movement was initiated, people start to like, recognize about this truth and started to lend help to the needy. So I wouldn't say this pandemic has done us any good, but it is true that this pandemic has become kind of like a pushing force to allow society to discover and be aware of all these social issues that are happening, which if it wasn't for the pandemic, it might take a long, long time for this to happen. Yeah. So this is some of my views about the pandemic and what it brings to us. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Chewy, for sharing your opinions. Yeah, as for me personally, I feel like one thing that I've learned is time. You have to make full use of your time because you never know what will happen in 2 years. In 2 years' time, we lost like 4 million lives. It's crazy. And in 2 years' time, we can see, people are dying and it does really affect, how we are mentally and physically. And it does reflect back to myself in this like really short time. Of course, we have different time, how much time left we live on this earth, what are the good things that I've met that like to be other people, and am I making full use of my time and living on this earth. And yeah, and of course, what can we do to prevent for the next pandemic is, of course, it's time. It's depending on how fast you react or how slow you react on this pandemic. And yeah, I think that's my opinion and what I've learned from this pandemic as well. Right, ladies and gentlemen, I guess that is our last question for today. And now that we have come to an end of our today's discussion, it's like more than 1 hour. And yeah, I personally learned a lot from today's discussion, today's input, and get to understand more and having the insight of what is really actually happening in Australia, in France, and in Korea, and in Malaysia. It's a really good discussion. Well, before we really end this discussion, a quick last word from our panels. Perhaps from, yeah, just a quick last word from Daniel.
I didn't really prepare this, but yeah, I just really thank you, PPMK, for this initiative. I think it's very good that we as international students in our respective countries, we do connect and we bring the things that we learn from each of our respective countries, and we really pull the knowledge together. And I think this is the greatest asset that we can have studying overseas. I think that is the greatest thing, because that's the main difference of studying university in Malaysia and overseas. So I think with our experiences in our respective countries, I think it's very invaluable, and I think that is the greatest thing that we can have being in our country. So yeah, and I just want to again thank you for inviting us. Yeah, thanks.
Well, thank you for having us and joining us today. Thank you so much, Daniel. Thank you, MASCA. And yeah, last word from Ani.
Yeah, I would really love to thank you guys for inviting me to this session, and it was definitely an eye-opening session for me, because who would have thought? I mean, I wouldn't be interested in knowing what's happening in Korea and maybe Australia if not for this session. So at least now I get this feeling of wanting to know more, maybe do my own research on what's happening in maybe other countries too. And I do agree with Daniel that it's a privilege for us as international students, to see Malaysia from outside, because you know how people say, if you're living in a box, you can't really see like the box from the outside. But if you have lived inside and then you went outside and you see how everything is going on, it helps you a lot in developing your own ways of thinking, your own like a view of how the world works. And yeah, it just helps you develop into a much more knowledgeable person. And I really think like PPMK is doing such a great job at doing that, and I would like to applaud you guys for that. And maybe myself, ourselves, we can learn from what you guys are doing. And yeah, I really love what you guys are doing, and just a huge thanks to you guys. And I hope we can like work again in the future. So yeah.
Exactly, we love to work with everyone. It's a really eye-opening for me as well, and it's really humble, discussion to have with people from other associations. And thank you, Anit. Thank you, Masa, for joining us today. And yeah, last word from Chi.
Yes, thank you so much to Daniel and Anif, because this was a really, really fruitful session. I personally have gained a lot of insights about how different countries deal with with this coronavirus, which I couldn't like see in the news so detailedly. Thank you for providing like super details for us. And also like to our audience, I hope that you guys can like, take home a thing or two from our excellent panels. And to everyone that is battling the virus, I hope that you guys stay strong and be resilient. Okay, so be sure to stay safe, everyone. And yeah, that's all from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Chiwi. Thank you so much, all the panels, for your times and your effort in making this event possible. And hopefully in Malaysia, we can meet up one day, lepak mama, to discuss about this issue. Right. With that, ladies and gentlemen who are watching, thank you so much for tuning in for more than 1 hour until the end of this today's session. And thank you once again for tuning in. And I hope you guys are taking care of yourself, and have a nice day, everyone. Thank you.